And good afternoon again, everybody. This is Derek DeRazio, North Carolina Emergency Management. I'm the Compliance Officer and Grants Branch Manager at NCEM. And we are here with our continuing GYGO, Get Your Grant On training series, coming to you this afternoon from lovely Beaufort County Community College, BCCC, in Beaufort County, North Carolina. This morning earlier, we covered the FY24 CBCG, Competitive Capacity Building Grant Program. Now this afternoon, we are covering the North Carolina Tier 2 grant program. Tier 2 is a hazardous materials grant. It's a state grant funded program funded from Tier 2 hazardous materials receipts collected from hazardous materials facilities across the state. With me today are various GMB or Grants Management Branch staff, including Ms. Lisa Patton, who is our lead program manager for Tier 2. Lisa's unfortunately under the weather today, so I'll be handling the presentation for her. But normally any questions you would have would be directed directly to Lisa as the lead program manager for this grant. And thanks for joining us, Teresa. I see Teresa's joined us. Hope you're doing well. And in the room, we also have Mr. Reed Sutherland from Jones County Emergency Services, and Janine Childs is with me here as well. And other folks are joining us virtually. Okay, so I think we'll dispense with the introduction since it's a small group and get right into the content so we can get you out of here a little earlier today if we can. Let's move right into the slides, Janine, if we could. All right, so as you see, this is just kind of framing the context of our grant program as a whole. Basically within North Carolina Emergency Management, if you heard me say this morning for CBCG, I do apologize, I have to repeat it because this is being recorded separately for Tier 2. So these recordings will be available on our website. So we'll repeat the same information a little bit in both presentations. This introductory information is the same. But anyway, our whole grant program for NCM comprises 20 major recurring federal and state grant programs, totaling about $500 million a year. Some of those programs require disaster declarations and some do not. The grants we administer, our Grants Management Branch through my office, are the non-disaster preparedness grants. So these do not require disaster declaration. We handle about 10 of those 20 major state and federal grant programs across the board. Our grants cover about $85 million a year. So overall, NCM manages $500 million in grants. Grants Management Branch manages about $85 million of that $500 million in grants. We cover 10 different of the 20 different programs. We cover half of those programs. So we cover the majority of the grant programs, but most of the money, the big money, is in the disaster grant program, such as public assistance and hazard mitigation. But we cover the majority of the other programs. Still, $85 million a year is not chump change, right? If you would say so. So a lot of money we're responsible for, and we have a lot of different programs to administer those funds over. Tier 2 is certainly one of those important grant programs, and we're having this training for Tier 2 today. As far as announcements go, for FY20, Tier 2 is every year we do a Tier 2 grant program. So fiscal year 23 Tier 2, the period of performance ended on that one back in January 31st, 2024. Tier 2 is a little smaller grant program. Typically, it's less than about $200,000 a year that we award out to the various grantees in the program. But of that, about less than $200,000 we awarded out. Unfortunately, come the end of the day, when the period of performance is over, all the requests for reimbursement have been processed. We still have not expended over $20,000 of that grant. That means that money will be deobligated. That will go back into the pool of money that the state will expend for those Tier 2 funds. So that's $20,000 less that goes out to the locals, only because locals did not expend it, right? So as we kind of wrap our heads around Tier 2 and try to re-engineer that program in the future, we need to figure out ways that we can get that money out to the locals and they spend it all and not give it back at the end of the day, because it just comes back to the state if it's not spent by the locals. So again, less than $200,000 awarded out, over $20,000 came back deobligated. That's, pretty good portion of that money that was not spent by the locals. So we got to try to figure out a better way to use our funds in the future. Be that as it may, that's 23 Tier 2. For 24 Tier 2, we already have the applications that the grantees had submitted were supposed to be submitted by December 31st of 23. All those applications have been processed, the awards have been made, and all of the MOAs or grant agreements for FY24 Tier 2 should have been executed. So if you received FY24 Tier 2, assuming you did, Teresa, hopefully you're read, I don't know if you have, but if you have received it, then you should have your MOAs executed for those awards. All right, moving on to the next slide. This is just a little bit of information about Salesforce. You may have heard some buzz about Salesforce. If you joined us earlier today, we walked through a full demonstration of Salesforce for the CBCG grant program. So Salesforce is our new online grants management solution. We spent about $500,000 developing this solution over the last almost 2 years. We rolled it out in a pilot project with the FY24 CBCG grant program back in January. CBCG is a state grant program. About 90 counties are eligible for that. So it's a limited test pilot. We're rolling out. We're working through the kinks with CBCG. We're using it for the nonprofit security grant program next. Actually, those applications just started in NSGP, and they close here at the end of the month. So we're into the NSGP grant program at Salesforce now, and that's a federal grant, and it's for nonprofits. So it's a little different testing environment. So we have a state grant with the counties for CBCG. We got a federal grant with nonprofits for NSGP. Both are now in Salesforce. We're going to roll out the EOCGP, the Emergency Operations Center grant program. That's going to roll out here at the end of this month. That's just for Durham County. They're the only county that was funded for 24 EOC. That's a federal grant program. They received about $650,000 from FEMA to help build their EOC in Durham County. They're the only grantee for that, so it's a very limited environment as well. So we've rolled out CBCG, NSGP, soon to be EOCGP. For SLCGP, our state local cybersecurity grant program, we were in the process of going through and reviewing the applications we've received for the 23 SLCGP program. SLCGP is a newer grant program, so it's about a year behind the other grants. So we're at the 23 cycle for SLCGP. We're reviewing those applications. That's about a $10 million grant program. Once those applications are approved from those entities who applied, we will announce those awards and we will execute the agreements and make the award notifications officially in Salesforce. So we will manage that grant in Salesforce. That'll be the next grant we roll out. We expect to do that hopefully sometime in the July-ish timeframe. And then once all that's done, come the fall of 24, so probably starting around October-ish timeframe, we're going to start rolling this out in Salesforce for all of the 25 grant cycle, okay? So what that means is you as a county will be submitting your applications in Salesforce for the FY25 grants in the fall of 24, which will be due by December 31st, 2024. So you'll submit, among others, your Tier 2 application will be submitted in Salesforce for FY25 Tier 2 in the fall of 24. You'll submit your HMEP, which another hazardous materials grant program. It's a federal grant program. That will be submitted in Salesforce. Your HSGP and EMPG applications for FY25 will be submitted in Salesforce in the fall of 24. So we're slowly building up through these pilots, getting to the big rollout in the fall of 24, and then pretty much for the 20, for those grants moving forward, they'll all be in Salesforce. Previous to that, our current system is a legacy grant system. It's largely an access database that nobody has access to except us as grant managers. So we're still continuing to use that legacy database to manage our grants that are prior to these 24 and 25 grant cycle that we're rolling out. So for a while, we'll have parallel systems going. We'll have the legacy system for the older grants. As they close out, everything was going to be in Salesforce moving forward. So long story short, 23, 24 Tier 2 are going to be legacy system, the old way, the current way we do it with the access database, emailing things back and forth using DocuSign and so forth. That's the way we handle 24 Tier 2, but 25 Tier 2 moving forward will be in Salesforce. Next slide, please. Let me take a sip after going through that mouthful. All right, grant life cycle. So like anything else in life, grants have a natural cycle, if you will, from birth to closeout. This is like a clock. If you look at it, at 12 o'clock is the applications y'all submit as grantees, right? So the middle is the NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunity, or the state award. In this case, Tier 2 is a state award. And then at 12 o'clock there, y'all submit your applications for Tier 2. For FY24 Tier 2, those applications had to be submitted by 12/31/23. So you submitted your application. That's the first step of your process at 12 o'clock. Moving on to 1 o'clock there, those counties that received the FY24 Tier 2 funding had received award notifications or award letters. Y'all had to accept those awards. Then you told us who you wanted to sign your MOAs or your grant agreements when you accepted those awards. So moving down to the red box there, the MOA or grant agreement. Y'all have executed your grant agreements, currently using DocuSign for that. So, you've submitted your application, you have your award letter, you have your executed grant agreement, and that grant agreement is just that. It's a legal contract that tells you the terms and conditions and responsibilities you have as a grantee if you accept the award funding from us. So you've executed your contracts, your grant agreements. Then, since you've had the MOAs, you can now start submitting cost reports or requests for reimbursement to be reimbursed for eligible expenditures under the grant. And again, all of our grants that we do for NCEM, for non-disaster preparedness grants, are all reimbursement-based grants. We do not front money to grantees. You all must engage in the expenditure yourself, pay the money up front, then submit to us the appropriate documentation to be reimbursed. In that way, we ensure compliance, because if you do not buy an eligible item, do not provide the appropriate documentation, you will not be reimbursed by that item. If you not remain current with all your reporting and other responsibilities under your MOA, we will not reimburse you for your request for reimbursement. So that's the way we kind of ensure compliance with all of our grantees, basing it as a reimbursement grant. And that's important because we get audited, right? Just like y'all get audited, we get audited as well. And if we're not able to show compliance for our subrecipients, our grantees, then we could lose that money from the state and from FEMA and federal grants. So that's why we do these as reimbursement-based grants. So that's at 6 o'clock on the grant life cycle. Moving up a little bit to the pink box there for the reporting. So each grant has different reporting requirements in it. So it might be an annual report, it might be biannual, it might be quarterly. I don't think we have a lot of reporting requirements for Tier 2 because it's such a short period of performance, only a year. I don't think we require much reporting for that. But most grants have some type of report you have to submit periodically to tell us kind of what you're doing with your grant money. So anyway, you have your request for reimbursement, your reporting requirements. Once you expend your grant balance down to zero, or you want to deobligate your funds if you don't spend them, we get to the closeout at the 11 o'clock red box there on the diagram. You then, you expended your grant money, you've deobligated the rest of the remaining funds, you close the grant out. You're supposed to get a closeout letter from us once you do that. That's your kind of one-page letter, your receipt for your auditors saying, hey, I completed this grant, it's done, it's closed out. Put that in your grant file, you're done with the grant. We start it again next year. So from 12 o'clock through 11 o'clock, that is your grant life cycle. Now, when you get into Salesforce, all of these various stages of the grant life cycle have different objects and different fields associated in Salesforce with completing this grant life cycle naturally. But for now, we're a legacy system for Tier 2. We do it again via legacy means with an Access database, an email, and DocuSign. All right, next slide, please. Okay, getting into the kind of heart of the matter here with the Tier 2 program. So the Tier 2 program, again, it's funded largely from receipts, hazardous material receipts from the various hazmat facilities located throughout the state. They have to pay a lot of money, to handle those hazardous materials. And a small part of that money comes back to us as NCEM. And a part of that funding we spend on some things ourselves, but a lot of that end up getting passed through to the locals to help run their LEPCs. That's what this grant is really for. It is a competitive program. There used to be a non-competitive Tier 2 program and a competitive Tier 2 program. A couple of years ago, we changed that to make it all competitive. The non-competitive program, it was just $1,000 award that went to all the counties and governmental entities that had LEPCs. But we found that was a very inefficient way to administer a grant because $1,000 does not buy a lot these days. So we were spending probably about $5,000 in man hours to manage a $1,000 grant, and it wasn't adding up. So we have since combined all that non-competitive competitive into a single competitive grant program. So now you can apply for up to $10,000. In the future, you can still apply for a $1,000 grant. There's no floor right now for Tier 2. But in the future, one of the things we're looking at potentially doing is setting a minimum, a floor, again, to get away from those smaller grants because they're so inefficient to administer that money, not just for us, but for y'all as well, right? There's a lot of work you have to do on this too. Is it really worth it for $1,000? So hopefully in the future, we'll have a minimum as well as a maximum award amount. But right now, there's no minimum. You can apply for as little as you want, but the most you can apply for is $10,000, and it's all competitive. Having said that, it being a competitive award, what I've seen from the data I've seen since we made it all competitive, most of the applicants that submit a complete application end up getting funded. If you don't get funded, you'll at least get HMEP funding. So between tier 2 and HMEP, you don't get funded for your hazardous material needs, because we just don't have as many applicants for these awards as we do, like for say CBCG or SLCGP or some of our other, more popular awards, because this is related just to hazmat and the LEPC. So it's very limited focused award. So even though it's competitive, you're going to get, most folks will get funded on this. At least historically, that's been the case. Again, and I'll go back. I'm sorry, one slide, Gene. Allowable expenditures, again, anything supporting your LEPC, hazmat planning, training, exercise activities. So what's not typically included in that is your equipment, right? So, not your hazardous materials, response equipment, or operational equipment. This is more for your cost, your LEPC, and your planning, training, exercises, not operational equipment. And this particular grant, the reason it's structured this way is because this grant is our state match for our larger federal HMEP grant. And the HMEP grant is a training and exercise grant only. It's not an operational grant. So in order for us to provide the match for that federal grant, that grant's administered through PHMSA, DOT PHMSA. In order for us to provide the match for that grant, we have to have state expenditures that are similar to the federal grant. So we cannot spend the money on operational hazardous material equipment. It's got to be on planning, training, exercise, and LEPC administration. So that's why we do it that way, because this is the state match to the HMEP grant. All right, next slide, please. So what is eligible, right? We always get questions about this. And when I say we, the way this program is administered, we have a hazmat group at North Carolina Emergency Management. They work under the operations section. They're a special hazmat group. They are programmatic lead on this grant. We, as grants management branch, just provide the grant support for it. So whenever you submit requests for reimbursement, it gets vetted through the programmatic office, which is the hazmat group. That's Cole Olin is the gentleman that runs that. Who were some of the other folks? A young lady named Sarah, Cole Olin, JR may be involved in that. I don't know if he's still involved in the program. He was at one point. So those folks run that. So everything goes through them first, right? Then if it vets out with them, they send it to us and we make sure it gets paid. But it goes through that screening first to see what is eligible, what is not eligible. So questions come up a lot about what can be paid with tier 2. So this slide basically tells you in a nutshell what we can pay with tier 2, what we can reimburse with tier 2. All right. So costs incurred facilitating LDPC meetings, outreach efforts, promotional materials to some extent. And I'm going to show you a document that kind of outlines that a little more clearly for you, what that means with promotional materials. Food, this has always been kind of a grant that we can provide food, for the meetings for. It's been a popular use of the grant, and we continue to do that. We have some flexibility to do that with this grant because it's a state grant. So that's always an encouraged use of the grant as well. Conferences, and then of course your plans, your response plans are eligible. Okay, next slide, please. Continuing your eligible activities. Again, non-operational equipment, right, to support the LEPC, non-operational being the key. We can't provide operational equipment because that would violate the HMEP rules, and this is the match for the HMEP grant. Supports hazardous material risk assessments and subscriptions to your web services, such as your SDS and your ChemTrack. And again, if you're purchasing any equipment, please get pre-approval from, it'll be in your MOA, but there's an email box that's been created now for hazmat, and in that hazmat email box, you'll send it to that, and you'll have to get your approval for your equipment purchase ahead of time. I mean, you could buy your equipment, without approval, but you might not get reimbursed for it, right? So please try to get that approval before you do it to make sure it's a reimbursable expense. All right, next slide, please. What's not eligible? All right, no salaries. Sometimes people think they can pay salaries for any hazmat staff. Not allowed with tier 2. Again, because tier 2 is the match for HMEP. So no salaries or benefits for any employees. No drones or unmanned aerial vehicles. There are a whole slew of special requirements when we talk about purchasing drones or UAVs with grant funds, and that's not eligible under the tier 2 program. Promotional items for your LEPC. Okay, this is where it gets a little gray area sometimes. Promotional item, yes. Gift, no. So if you want to buy something to give a speaker, for speaking as a gift, that's a gift. That's not a promotional item. But if you're buying something to promote the LEPC, then that may be eligible. Now I'm going to take you to our website here in a minute, and we'll flesh out a little more so what's good and what's not. But in general, Gifts, no. Promotional items, yes. That can cause some confusion in reality, but that's the general rule. Okay, any programs not supported on hazard materials, obviously, this is a hazard material grant. You know, that's, I think most people understand that, but just we just repeat it here just to be sure. Again, I can't say it enough, no operational response equipment. I wish we could, right? Because that stuff's expensive and there's a great need for it, but we just are not allowed to do it under the rules of the grant. And again, other promotional materials that are not printed or not general office supplies, such as, but not limited to, okay? This is what you cannot buy as promotional materials with the grant. You can't buy coasters, coffee mugs, challenge coins is a big one. A lot of folks want to buy, you know, coins for their LEPCs, their hazmat programs. You can do that, but you can't be reimbursed for it under tier 2. Lanyards, you know, banners, that type of stuff is unfortunately not reimbursable under tier 2. All right. And before we get to this, keep that slide up to you. I'm going to share my screen real quick and just show you all the website. So if you just Google NCEM space tier, T-I-E-R, Roman numeral 2, it'll take you to this website, or just go to our main webpage and look under grants and you'll find it. But this is our tier 2 grants website. It's probably one of our shortest websites, to be honest with you, because it's such a limited program, unlike other programs like CBCG and heaven forbid our federal grant programs, which are much more complicated. This is relatively simple. So there's not a whole lot of web content, but what there is on this website, and I want to please emphasize this to you, this is basically the entire grant. If you go to this website, and let me get rid of that there, just click on tier 2 overview right here. Now this will be updated for FY24 tier 2. I've asked the hazmat group to update this about 1,000 times, so hopefully they'll do it sooner or later, but the same information applies, okay? This is the grant in a nutshell. If you don't know anything else about tier 2, just look at this simple 2-page document, tells you everything you need to know. All right, $10,000 maximum award. Here's the dates. Again, these were the dates for 23. We're going to get this updated for 24. Here's your points of contact right here. Cole is your main program manager right now listed for programmatic lead for tier 2. Lisa's your grants manager. But here's the good stuff. What can I buy and what can I not buy? All right. So if you just look at, please, before you buy anything with tier 2, look at this sheet of paper. All right. If it says it's eligible, you can buy it. If it says it's not eligible, please do not buy it. As simple as that. All right. So what can be bought specifically? What type of promotional materials can be bought specifically? Okay. So you can do brochures, flyers, branded pens, legal pads, and notebooks. All right. So materials that are printed or general office supplies. These are the types of things you can buy. You can buy food, right? You can buy non-alcoholic beverages, of course. Because you can't buy alcohol for grant funds, non-alcoholic beverages and food. All right. Conferences, like we talked about that, emergency response plans, exercises. All right. Again, equipment necessary to support the LEPC and its mission, not operational equipment. As material risk assessments, here's your MSDS online, your ChemTrack subscriptions. All right. And again, no operational equipment. This is stuff you can buy. Stick to this, you're going to be okay. All right. Stuff you can't buy, again, we've already said it. No coasters, coffee mugs, challenge coins, lanyards, and banners. Simple as that. Now, again, they're going to update this guidance hopefully soon. And Lisa, please take a note of this again. Every time we have this training, we bring this up. Please get with Cole or JR, whoever's running this now, and make sure they update this document for FY24. But it's not, this part shouldn't change too much. There might be some more guidance, but this part should be true. So this is basically what you can and can't buy. So go to the website, take a look at this document. That is the grant program in a nutshell. All right. I'm going to stop sharing, Janine, and go back to your presentation. If you want to share again, Janine, please, for the next slide.
So we can buy lunch, or if we want to bring in groups to build the LEPC.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can buy lunch and food for the LEPC. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, when you buy the lunch, you'll see in the MOA, it's got to be reasonable, right?
Right.
You're not buying, a steak and lobster buffet. Yeah.
I know you got to buy the per diem.
Yeah, it's a per diem. That's what you do. Yeah. But yeah, you can buy food, and again, you can buy water, non-alcohol drinks as well. Yeah, and most companies will work with you and work within the per diem rates. to do that. All right. So, who was eligible for tier two and again, you've already applied for FY24 tier two, so you know who's eligible, but for FY25 and moving forward, whoever's watching this video, essentially county governments are eligible. So there are mostly it's individual county governments, but there can be county governments that combine on LEPC. Sometimes you see the combined LEPC application, but usually it's just individual counties. The application right now for 24 tier two, it's on our website, but again, you've already completed that. For 25 tier two moving forward, it's going to be in Salesforce. So we'll have a separate demonstration come the fall of 24 for you to submit your 25 application in Salesforce. So this is the part that's changing. Again, when to apply. So you have to do it by December 31st of the year before the grant. So the application has already been turned in for 24. For 25, then we do 12/31/24. It's a year, every year it's a 1 year grant, basically. Right. Next slide, Janine. And that pretty much, although you can't really see this map as well, this map is our regional map. So it kind of breaks down the region and who are the contacts for the various aspects of the map. I don't know if we might have this on our website too. I'm not going to show it a little better from the website. Let me see. I think it's in our website, Gina, I believe somewhere. If you can find it, let me see if we have that somewhere. Let me see real quick. Yeah, we have some. I'll share my screen, Janine. I'm showing the website a little better, hopefully. All right. So this is on our website. And this basically breaks it down here. Here's different grant programs. These are all active hire points. So these are our 10 grant programs that we administer. The grants management branch, our non-disaster preparedness grants. And these are the grant managers responsible regionally, 1 through 5 here, 6 through 10 here, 11 through 15 here. There's your contacts. That's on our website. If you just Google NCEM grants, kind of our main interface for our website for grants, you'll see that right there. Now, these are the grants we administer for the grants management branch. Again, public assistance has their own division of responsibility. Hazard mitigation has their own division of responsibility. Public assistance also handles the long-term recovery grants under Joe Stanton. They do their own thing. This is just the 10 grants we administer. All right. And with that, I'll stop sharing because that is the end of our tier 2 presentation today. All right. Do we have any questions? Read any questions from you, sir?
No, you've answered mine. I had a question about the lunch because we're going to try to build our program, and I know that if you feed them, they'll come.
Yeah, it's good advice.
Yeah. So, but we've got our county is not a big industrial county, but we do have some.
Okay.
And we're trying to reach out to co-ops and
right.
electrical company that does have some.
Yep.
Our fertilizer companies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we're trying to reach out.
Well, the other thing you got to realize, I've always had to say with hazmat, you might have a lot of hazmat being produced in your county, but for damn sure it's going through the roads in your county.
Oh, yeah.
It's transported throughout the roads in the state, right?
We know that Norfolk Railroad goes through our county on the tip end of it.
Yep.
And we know that one of the train cars is one of the most deadliest chemical that travels up. It actually travels from Aurora all the way through to Virginia.
Yep.
So it's a very short distance, but we know that not to bother it, but we're trying to get Norfolk and all them different DOT groups and all of our LEPC. So
yeah, it's transported rail and road, so it's all throughout the state.
Yes.
It's amazing how much has materials that go through this state, and it's dangerous, nasty stuff, and we hope to provide a little bit of relief with this funding, for tier 2 and HMEP to help manage that mess.
But yeah, that's all I got. It's very informational. So
all right, outstanding. Thank you. It looks like Teresa's good. Her only questions have already been answered through the presentation. So if there are no more questions, next on our agenda here for our GYGO, we just have open office hours. If anybody wants to join us, we'll be around for that. But other than that, we're done for the day. I'm gonna stop the recording. Thank y'all for joining us.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
So to get onto the portal for the.
Yeah, I'll do it right now. Yeah. Let me just stop.